in that vein. We've also accepted tentatively felon in possession of a firearm twice.
Sheila Jones, the deputy who was shot, is a 30-year veteran who prevented what authorities say could have been a mass casualty event. She's in stable condition, but still recovering. Some HISD parents, say their students were presented an exam despite opting out of standardized testing. News 88.7's Patricia Ortiz says parents are participating in a protest against the STAR test.
Some of the parents have opted out of standardized testing for their children every year. Ruth Kravitz is the co-founder of Community Voices for Public Education, a local advocacy nonprofit. She says presenting students with an exam goes against the wishes of parents.
That puts the child in jeopardy, having to decide between obeying their parent, who they love, and their teacher, who they respect. And that's a bad place to put a 9-year-old.
According to the Texas Education Agency, STAR test results determine accountability ratings for schools, which determines if a student is ready for the next grade level. I'm Patricia Ortiz, News 88.7.
Authorities in Jamaica Beach say there may be more packages of cocaine that wash up on shore in the coming days and weeks. They're asking the public to hand them in should they discover them, and authorities say this is likely the result of a drug bust at sea. And today is Earth Day, so be sure to enjoy the beautiful weather. It's currently 79 degrees and a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, hello there, Houston.
Hello.
Happy Tuesday.
Back. It's only Tuesday?
It's only Tuesday.
My Lord.
It's only Tuesday. It's pre-hump day.
You know what? The question I get the most about this show is, do you guys really get along as well as it sounds on the air? It's like, I think we get along better off the air than we argue more, I think, on air than we do off air.
Yeah.
We are very lucky.
We save it for on air.
Right. If you'd like to see us, the way we interact with each other, you can watch us on YouTube. It's so easy to do. Go to YouTube, look for the Houston Public Media channel, and there we are. Or even easier, just type into your browser, hellohouston.org. The top of that page, you'll see an orange banner that tells you, click here to watch live. And you can see it. And when you do, you will notice that Celeste is wearing yellow today.
I am.
It's a little greeny
neon,
yellow.
but it's what I have. And yes, I am wearing yellow today in remembrance and honoring Lexi Rubio. Lexi Rubio was one of the 21 victims in the Uvalde shooting. And this morning, Uvalde ISD holds a 21 days of remembering 21 angels. And Lexi Rubio's mom, Nick Rubio, posted that today was Lexi's day and her favorite color was yellow. And she played on a softball team that wore sunflowers in their hair. And this was my small gesture from one mom to another to remember her sweet girl. And we're thinking about the Rubio family today.
That's nice.
That's very nice. I don't know how to take a segue from there to the weather.
Oh, you know what? I'm just looking at all these models right now. And, there's this like 70% chance of rain for tomorrow. But the models don't agree with that. The models are kind of like, maybe a few scattered showers. Remember, it was, it's going to rain Easter. It's going to rain Easter. And then it hardly rained Easter at all. I think it's the same situation. It's going to rain Wednesday. But you know what? It might not rain much at all.
Oh, I like that idea. And then your yellow will stay bright for us.
I like the rain. Unpopular opinion. I like the rain. My hair doesn't like it, but I do. There's something about spring and rain and I don't know.
April showers bring Mayflowers, and Mayflowers bring Pilgrims.
That's our
You
dad
look at me
joke.
like you've never heard that
I've never
before.
heard that.
I think I've told you
Oh
that
my
joke
God,
like
we're
10 times.
generational. We just told a seriously generational joke there, Ernie.
They're called dad jokes now, and that tells you
Yes.
something else, too. We thank you for listening to Hello Houston every day. Coming up this hour, we're going to talk about data breaches. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting things that touch and affect your life. And we always invite you to be part of the conversation. You can call us 713-440-8870 or email us talk@hellohouston.org. And as always, we start the show with the top headlines of the day. And as always, Celeste leads us off.
Yep, thanks, Ernie. So there have been some interesting developments coming out of D.C. regarding Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Defense Secretary is under fire once again after multiple reports are saying that Hegseth shared classified information in a group chat with his wife, brother, and personal attorney. This apparently happened right about the same time in March when he shared similar details with top White House officials in a different Signal chat group. Signal is like think about it like a WhatsApp, and that accidentally included a journalist. This morning, Hegseth was on Fox News, and the defense secretary is adamantly denying any wrongdoing and doubling down and on blaming the media, saying the media keeps kicking up old stuff.
At the beginning, it was left-wing reporters from The Atlantic who got a hold of it and then wanted to create a problem for the president. This is what it's all about, trying to get at President Trump and his agenda.
President Donald Trump is standing by Hegseth. He went as far as to publicly defend him at the White House Easter egg roll last night, and he's denying reports that the White House is looking for another and a different defense secretary. President Trump told reporters, quote, "Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy about him." But NPR reported yesterday the White House has begun the process of looking for a new leader at the Pentagon to replace Pete Hegseth, according to a U.S. official who was not authorized to speak on this issue publicly. We want to hear from you. Should Hegseth be replaced, or do you think he's doing a good job? And this all media hubbub. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870.
Well, in fairness, the only job we know he's doing is the one he keeps screwing up. So, I mean, maybe he's doing a great job, then that's not being reported, because the only thing being reported is these signal issues. And right. From what people in the military say, it's not good.
Right. And well, my problem with this whole story is you do something wrong, somebody points it out, so you get mad at the people that are pointing it out and say, they're just trying to cause trouble. And so they move the story off the fact you should not be having these conversations on Signal. I don't care who's talking about it. I don't care how it's being spread out. The fact is, don't do it in the first place. Now, the timing of all of it, I'm not exactly sure which thing happened first. I
believe it was the journalist, the text
to the journalist
happened first,
yep.
And then there was an investigation. And within that investigation, now they're seeing that there was
so the
this
hootie happened before.
And
so
around that time.
But so then that gives a little grace, if that's the timing of it, because it could be. Now, once again, here I am taking devil's advocate position on this. Not that I am supporting it. Do not misunderstand this. But the Signal app was talked about within the government as a way to communicate. I guess on government phones that were issued, they had it on there. So if you're not thinking fully through, you think this is a place to chat. The big hubbub came with the fact with the journalists being in it, and now they're looking back at earlier things. For me, the bigger issue is since it became very obvious this had happened, has he done it since?
Well, the other part to that is that the White House has said the reason they were using that app, Signal, was because it was a way to communicate with individuals who hadn't been confirmed yet. After the confirmation, if you were confirmed, they were encouraging people, or they were basically saying, we're not using that app. Hegseth apparently continued to use that app to communicate internally once he was confirmed.
Right.
And I think for me, the issue isn't necessarily do we agree or not agree. I think everybody can agree on this clearly is a major issue.
Right.
It is how severe of an issue do you think it is?
But instead of addressing the issue, the administration is making it all about the journalists who are reporting
The
it.
media.
And it's fake news and all of this stuff. That's not the problem here.
Right.
The situation is, should our defense secretary be even if it was a secured source of communication, sharing these things with his family members?
Seems like to me he's unfit to lead.
Well,
He's in over his head
again,
with this job.
This is shocking. It is absolutely shocking how bad it is. I mean, this is really shocking. It is not surprising. And it's not surprising because Pete Hegseth had almost zero government experience before he came into this
But you
role.
don't need government experience to understand what classified information is and who you share it with.
Yeah, well, you may need it to know how to operate an app if you're not familiar with the app.
Right.
And
But-
I mean, we had some politicians get on Facebook and Twitter and tweet things that they very much regretted because they didn't understand exactly how Twitter worked.
Right.
And it's very interesting to look at this. You know, we look at the Trump administration the first time he was in office and how different it has been. And he said that it was going to be very different because before he kind of felt like he got taken by people within D.C.
Yeah.
Now he has put people that he wanted to, move forward with his agenda. And it seems interesting at the amount of scandals that have been around.
So what do you think? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Lewis is on the line from the Med Center. Lewis, what's on your mind today?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me airtime. So on my mind is this. The lieutenant is not fit for Secretary of Defense. His inexperience, his comments, and he's defensive instead of taking critique on what's going on. He's made a mistake now 2 times. This is about the United States national security.
Right.
Okay? It's serious. Our enemies are laughing at us. They love what's going on. So, yes, I'm concerned, very concerned about our government, our country. Okay? Country first. Country first. There, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis.
No, and
If
2
you
big
have a
mistakes
thought-
in less than 100 days.
Yeah, if you have a thought or an opinion
That's
or a
right.
question for us, 713-440-8870. I'm sorry I cut you off there.
That's all right.
So
shall we move on?
we can. I just want to take one more angle on all of this. Kind of a bigger look at it all. What I'm really tired of is say whatever you want. It doesn't have to be based in truth anymore. And I know this happened. We saw it a lot. The people will criticize politicians all the time. But comments like it's fake news. That doesn't mean the news is fake. It means the president doesn't like to hear what's being said. It doesn't agree with what he wants. They say things, and I don't believe you can trust anything that comes out of this administration because they say whatever they want to say in the moment.
Yeah, and I feel like I have to say this, and I think a lot of people also, though, I'm going to be the devil's advocate
please
here,
jump on.
feel like the media has, in part, done this a little bit to themselves. And I think that speaking as the media, we have tended to maybe harp on things too long and really want to drill down.
Like I won't let this story go.
No, but it to me does say something, and now we have a administration and a president who isn't trying to necessarily suppress free speech, but is really taking advantage of it. And so I think the media has to be conscious with that.
Yes, but those are different points, I think. I think the fact is if the president came out and said, I feel like I'm being treated unfairly by the media because we are working on this and we are facing challenges, fine. That's okay to say. But to say, no, that's a lie. No, you're not allowed to report.
Yes.
Well,
No,
he doesn't
that-
want everyone to know that his pick was a bad
But the
pick.
point is, how can you trust anything that comes out when you can't trust what they say?
And the
that
scary
is dangerous.
And the dangerous part is that people really trust him.
Right. But if you can say, I'm putting these tariffs on, and I'm taking these tariffs, and I'm putting this on, and I'm doing that, and we're going here, and we're not doing that, then we're doing. Okay, let's grab
We have
one
a
more
call.
phone
Let's get it
call.
No, we have a call from Allison in the house.
Allison, what's on your mind today? Allison, you with us?
Hi.
There you are.
Yeah, sorry. Sort of back to your signal chat conversation.
Yeah.
I think the most important part is, there's 2 points. One is we're spending gajillions of taxpayer dollars to make sure our information is classified and secure, and there are 1,000 ways that they could have talked together without using Signal. But number two, Signal erases all evidence of your conversation within 24 to 36 hours. And by law, all of those officials should be having all of their conversations, especially about military operations, on record.
That is
so
a
they're
great
effectively
point,
ignoring
Allison.
evidence.
Thank you for that. That is a really smart point. We got smart listeners.
We have such smart listeners.
713-440-8870. Now, unless you have something. Oh, Celeste's finger is up. Okay, one more.
One more thing. I would love to hear from our listeners if you think Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary, is doing a great job. We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Okay, Frank, what you got for
someone
us?
who's doing a great job, apparently, is a woman in the Deer Park ISD school district, Tiffany Regan. She was unanimously approved as the superintendent following a local pastor's continued condemnation of her sexual orientation. She's a lesbian, has a 19-year-old son. She's a family woman who likes women. The school district members sang her praises of her character and her decades-long work in the district ahead of the unanimous approval. So that was last Monday. Good for her. The one dissenting voice was Central Baptist Church Pastor Doug Harris, making a final push in his vow to be the tip of the spear in efforts to prevent Regan's appointment. He urged board members to reject her. They did not do that. What's your thought on this? Are you with Deer Park's approval? Does personal life really matter when it comes to our educators? 713-440-8870. If you have an opinion, what do you think?
Yeah, well, if she was unanimously approved, I think you said unanimously approved, but there was
unanimously approved.
But there was a dissenter.
Well,
so
the dissenter was the
unanimous.
pastor who asked the board not to approve her,
okay.
not a member of the board.
Okay, not a member of the board. I have to assume if you are unanimously appointed, people have looked at your record and it has shown that you are right for this job.
Yeah, well, and he didn't bring someone else up to the forefront. If you're going to present a problem, then bring a solution. Say, I don't want her because she's a lesbian. I want her because she's not a lesbian. He didn't come up with the second candidate. So just to attack someone on their sexuality, it didn't work.
Right, and I
put
think
that out there. It didn't work.
The issue doesn't necessarily lie more on the superintendent and the unanimous vote, but it lies, I think, more on this pastor who, he had made a sermon and he went back and said he did not intend to, quote unquote, destroy Reagan. And he said he hoped his words would encourage her to repent of her sins and get some things right. I mean, what is it? Don't throw rocks in a glass house.
Right.
A little bit. I mean, that's where I see the issue that I have here.
Well, allegedly, he used parts of his Sunday sermon to share his opposition to the nomination of a lesbian woman, and it was because she's a lesbian that he didn't like her, not because of the job she did. I think she was a teacher at Deer Park. I mean, this is her home. This is her home turf,
right.
And everybody knows the kind of job she's done, the great character that they all ascribed to her, and they said, look, we're just good. We're good with her.
I think back to my elementary days. Yes, I can think back that far. I don't know the stories of the private lives of pretty much any of my teachers.
No.
It never influenced what happened in the classroom. I never thought that my math wasn't taught to me correctly because Mrs. So-and-so was actually stepping out on her husband. I don't know what went on.
But you didn't have social media.
That's what I was thinking.
You didn't
Social
have-
media plays a big part in this.
We didn't even know our teachers' phone numbers. I mean, you never call them at home. Now a lot of teachers give their cell numbers to students and say, if you have a question, call me, text me. Yeah, I mean, so it's a much more conversational attitude in education than it used to be.
Something that makes this country great is the separation of church and state.
Right.
And I think that this prevailed in this instant. And, I applaud everybody who voted her based on her experiences.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Way to go, Tiffany. Your hard work paid off. That's for sure.
We've been talking about quite a few different things here today, but we're going to go back to the Hegseth conversation because our phones are on fire. 713-440-8870. Richard is with us from Tomball. Richard, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys. I don't know enough about Hegseth. I don't like what's coming out in the media, so I don't particularly like the guy, but at the end of the day, Trump has been impeached twice and got off. We can talk all day about what Trump's done. So I don't think he really cares what happens. He can pardon somebody if somebody does get in real big trouble. So, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Richard, thank you for your thoughts on that. And I agree. I guess to follow on his point, too, it's if he's doing what Trump wants him to do, Trump doesn't care about the problems that surround it. Trump's getting his agenda through.
I also think that there's an element of just ego. Trump doesn't want to admit he's wrong. I mean,
no, he's never going to do that.
He's going to stand by him.
Let's move through a bunch of these calls quickly. So going up next is JD from the Heights. JD, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
Just a couple comments. The first is on the Reagan point. It's so sad about how the continued war on the classroom continues to be invoked by the GOP. I mean, all this amid declining education rates in our state. It really leaves some food for thought. But secondly, more importantly, on the Pete Hegseth question, I just find it incredibly ironic how the same defense from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is that it's not that big of a deal or it's a story conjured up by the media, when in fact this same issue, this data breach type issue, was the main attack on Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Absolutely. You're spot on. You are spot on, JD.
And I don't remember Hillary's emails getting disseminated outside
Didn't
of
see
their
one
circle.
of those 3,300 emails that Russia was supposedly looking at.
JD, thank you. Our number here, 713-440-8870. Jackson is calling us from East End. Hello, Jackson. What's on your mind?
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well.
So just my general thoughts about the whole scandal. I think in a normal administration, this is important. This is a huge scandal, but this is not a normal administration. I think the issues with Hegseth existed at the very beginning. The problem is he was chosen for loyalty and not for skill and not for his ability. This is governance 101. If you want a government that is incompetent, you choose people for loyalty. If you want a government that is effective, you choose for ability. So this scandal is a sideshow to the bigger issue, which is a government which is run on loyalty.
Jackson, thank you very much for those comments at 713-440-8870.
And interesting that Jackson took it from an incident to a scandal. Yeah. I have not heard it be called a scandal until he said that. But that may be, well, what it is. Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's go and see what Derek has to say. He's calling us from Clear Lake. Derek, what's on your mind?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I think like some of the previous callers, this has been kind of a sideshow. Most of the cabinet was chosen deliberately to create, sow discord. Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, much akin. But even early on, when Hegseth was involved with the initial negotiations for peace with Ukraine and Russia, it was like tipping his hand. He's not even the Secretary of, he's Secretary of Defense, not another cabinet member.
Yeah.
So he's kind of, do you follow me so far?
Yeah, we follow you so far. Derek, I'm going to move along just because of time right now, but thank you for those comments. Remember, we're interested in what everyone in our listening audience, are you maybe in favor of what you're seeing going on with Pete Hegseth and his work? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Valerie from Memorial, what's on your mind today?
Well, my mind is saying that Pete is not qualified. And it was proven in the voting, most people did not believe he was the right person. And he also bankrupt organizations he was in charge of before. So just because he worked at Fox News doesn't make him qualified.
Yep.
Agreed.
Valerie, thank you for those comments. There is, though, that whole point. Were they chosen for their ability to do the job and pushback and ideas, or were they chosen because they would be loyal to the commander-in-chief
You can
and
be
do
both.
his bidding?
You can be both.
You can be
You can be
both.
loyal and smart. And a lot
Find
of the
them
people
for me.
that Trump picked are.
Yeah, and I think that he said that early on, that he was going to pick people that he
Were
felt
loyal.
were loyal to him and comfortable.
And he did.
Yes, he did. And coming up on Hello Houston, what happens when your own confidential information is leaked? More on data breaches, which can be any security incident that results in potentially your unauthorized access to confidential information. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
You have the right to know what's happening, not just the news headlines, but the context that helps you understand what every story means for you and your community.
Houston Public Media makes that possible, bringing you independent news that's always free. No paywalls, no barriers, just facts.
Your support helps protect your access to well-researched reporting.
Support your right to stay informed by giving at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or 888-909-0887.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, in a personal and unflinching film, renowned historian Sir Simon Schama confronts the history of the concentration camps. Watch The Holocaust 80 Years On, tonight at 8 on TV8. Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles in minutes with the VIN or license plate, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Specs. 63 years of large selection. Now that's worth toasting to. Offering anniversary selections all month long. Details at specsonline.com. The fun starts here.
Support comes from the Moores School of Music, presenting Puccini's opera Turandot, a fantasy of love in ancient China, featuring soprano Christine Gerke and tenor Lenny Pulliam, April 24th in the Moores Opera House. Tickets at uh.edu/arts-tickets.
Support comes from the Inspirity Invitational, presented by United Healthcare, bringing Nicholas, Player, Trevino, Watson, Annika, and friends to town for the Folds of Honor Greats of Golf, one day only May 3rd. More information at inspirityinvitational.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Certa Pro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at certapro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well, not one support call for Pete Hegseth.
No, a very lively, though, first segment.
Yeah.
That it struck a nerve with us out there,
Excellent points.
and it's a perfect setup for our first guest in studio today.
That's right. So earlier this month, Laboratory Service Cooperative, which offers lab services to several clients, including Planned Parenthood, confirmed a data breach that compromised the information of about 1.6 million people. According to the Laboratory Service Cooperative, the data breach occurred in October of 2024. The breach compromised the information of people who got lab test work done at Planned Parenthood centers that utilized LSC's services. Now, this isn't the only major data breach to be made public. Hertz, yes, the car rental services, also announced a data breach that occurred last year after hackers exploited a file transfer platform that Hertz uses to gain access to customer data. What can people do to protect their private information? Should their info be compromised in data breaches? And why do hackers target hospitals and nonprofits, not just major businesses? Who is behind these data breaches, and what is being done to make sure to combat that we're protecting our information? To tell us more, we welcome Professor Anshumali Shrivastava, the Associate Professor of Computer Science of Electrical and Computer Engineering and of Statistics. Oop, that was my phone.
Over at Rice University.
At Rice University.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome. I'm not sure if you heard much of that first segment, but of course the Pete Hegseth thing is going kind of crazy right now. And I guess our first question would be, There is so much data and information out there, and so many people can hack. Is really using Signal that bad, especially with disappearing data? And are these more secured, thought to be secured services, really that much more secured?
So I think the world is so complicated right now, especially of the software, that you talk about any services like Signal or even like, let's say, Hertz. You see a innocent little form that says, yeah, fill up your information there. But behind the scene, there are hundreds of softwares that are going on, right? Because right now, the world has become so convenient that when I walk into Hertz, right, I don't even have to go to the counter. I can just walk into my car and drive it away, right?
Yep.
Isn't that convenient? But to make all that happen, there is validation, verification checks, all that has been done. There are several databases, services that are being utilized. For example, in case of Hertz, they were building on top of several other services. One of the services was Clio Communications. Now, what is going on behind the scenes is when Hertz come and say that we are some of the top-notch company with best security standards, if you look at the best security standards, even those are voluntary. That means everybody has been trained about, okay, you should not be using any software that does not follow that standards. And if you should follow all these practices so that data does not leave the environment, and you should report whenever it leaks, right? Now, what happens is if I'm using 50 other software behind the scenes, and Clio was an AI-powered services that manages the data because they give some interesting services to Hertz, but they had a vulnerability. And what happened? When the data breach happened, after a few months, Hertz realized it, and obviously they have to report it. But as you can see the complicated nature of the things, even Hertz is not aware of what all services they are using. The customer's data is touching all those services. They're assuming they are safe. And then at some point...
But we talk about these data breaches as though somebody else is tapping into the system and taking this information. We don't know who's working on these systems legitimately that have access to this information that can be taking it too, correct?
Yes. So that's true. So for example, let's say as a Hertz, I'm using 5 services. One of them is Clio, one is someone else, one is someone else. When I signed the contracts, I met let's say the higher level executives. I thought the company is like, yeah, it seems legitimate. The company follows certain security standards. Sign the deal. Now, behind the scenes, for all the system to work, your data is flowing through all these systems. And where the bad player is, nobody knows.
Well, how severe is it? Because I will get emails every once in a while. Like I received one recently from Shutterfly. I haven't been on Shutterfly in ages, but I received it and it said, we experienced a data breach. Please change your password. Should I be really concerned when I get that kind of email?
So I think you should be concerned if there are places where you have put your, let's say, social security number, credit card number, or certain passwords that will help unlock some of the critical things that you are. For example, my login and ID of like Shutterfly or several other places, I mean, I would assume that breaches are happening as we speak, right? Because there is a very big market about selling this on dark web for recommendations and like whatnot, right? You can literally make a lot of money by harvesting data. So there are a lot of people that are motivated to do it, and they are constantly finding vulnerabilities. And even software people don't know where the vulnerabilities are because they are voluntarily, security standards are voluntary.
Well, you touched on this. So Hertz is going to have probably my driver's license number and a credit card, but not much more than that to rent a car. Whereas a health system like this Laboratory Service Corporation, they're going to have my blood. They're going to have everything, not only my health status, but more than likely Social Security, because they want to come after me if I don't pay them, right?
Yep.
So they're going to get that, and credit card and home address and cell phone number. And they're going to have pretty much everything except maybe not my bank account. So what, in your opinion, really is the maximum amount of data any company should be able to legally have?
So I think legally is obviously they will just ask you, am I allowed to have this data and save you, right? But then if you see, there are checks and bounds there, right? Because if you don't give them that data, it will be a lot of inconvenience for you, right? Because you walk into a clinic and they will say, oh, I don't have this data, so you cannot just go walk in for the appointment. You have to fill in this form, do this, that, and you are like, oh, who want to go through the hassle? Let me just give the data, and I like breezing through, like, because saving my time. But I think that's where the things are. There is a trade-off between convenience and security. Maximum convenience means more vulnerability. Yeah. And we are really trusting the words of the company, which I think is also like they themselves don't know what several softwares is behind the rug.
Right. Well, to your and Celeste's point, Shutterfly is not going to have that much information. Right. But some of these apps, I don't keep any banking apps on my phone because I'm afraid of my phone getting hacked and that being a route to get there. Are there certain apps you would say don't keep on your phone?
I would say that, look, in this world, I would keep the security standards like at a level where, minimal, right? I mean, I will only provide information if it feels legit and if it feels unavoidable. Like, and allegedly unavoidable. For example, if Hertz asking me social security number, I will never give that, right?
What about the last four of your social?
Yeah, that is also an interesting thing because people can literally run credit checks based on the last four of your social and address. So if you have your driving license, let's say information in Hertz, they have your address, they have your name, and the last four of social, they can literally run.
And a lot of people, not everybody knows, you can tell the credit companies, don't issue any credit in my name. And put a freeze on that, which I do as well. So if our listeners don't know that you can do it.
Yes. I want to remind everyone we're talking to Professor Anshumali Shrivastava, who is the Associate Professor of Computer Science and Electrical and Computer Engineering and of Statistics over at Rice University. We are talking about all these data breaches and concerns and situations. I guess my bigger question is, especially when we talk about like TikTok and things like that, so much of our information is out there already. I can run reports and probably get, maybe not yours, but my co-hosts' social security numbers and things like that from other programs that are out there. We are already exposed. So when they say don't use TikTok because they can get your information, they already know it. All of us is out online already. Isn't this too late? Hasn't the cow already left the barn?
It's yes and no, right? So you're totally right. Let's say if I have all the information that you have put on the web, and basically if I want to know your social security number, people can easily know some way or the other. But the problem is, can I triangulate it through all the data sources? And what control is, it's the competition, right? So for example, Apple will not want their information, like Amazon will not want that information to go to Walmart, right? Sort of thing. So competition kind of protects us a little bit because even though that information is at one place, it will not like to go at another place. So it's not going to be easy for anyone to just go and get it. But yeah, of course, there are vulnerabilities around. And when there are vulnerabilities, certain kind of hackers can get that information easily and put it on dark web.
So we had a specific question, but I think it speaks to a broader question from Todd off air. What about DOJ and the National Labor Relations Board being given root access to the database and then Russia logging in? How does this happen? That's a pretty broad question. We've been talking about our personal data, but what about our nation's data and other countries coming in? People worry about the banking system being shut down all the time.
Yeah, so I think there it's the same kind of problem as just was mentioned before is, like most of this information is already there. If it's in the national database, most likely it's also somewhere else, right? If they are following certain security standards, then maybe it's secure. But if they are not, then, well, it's all around, right? So that's there. But yeah, if there is a very particular kind of information that we are worried about and we are leaking it to multiple platforms, it's always a bad thing.
Celeste brought up a point when she mentioned a Shutterfly account that she hasn't been on in years. We have so much garbage out there that we have signed up for, and programs have opened and closed. They've been merged. We don't even know who has that information more. Is there any way to truly, you get all these ads all the time, to clean your data from the internet? Does anything really work?
There are these tools that you can actually run the scan on, and it will just run around and say, okay, we found these kind of information out there, whether your password has been leaked or not. You can run some of those, but honestly, because for example, when I trust Hertz, let's say if I give Hertz my information, I am just waiting for a vulnerability that happens at Hertz and my data is gone. So it's like, if I'm comfortable putting my information on internet or any services, I mean, there is a potential that that information can go.
We talk about banking. It seems like what I would think in the whole thing, the biggest problem outside of, I never thought about them having your blood, but that's another one, Frank. But
my DNA is everywhere. Right. It's scary.
When you think about, though, money, my banking institution, my bank alerts me when any behavior seems. So I feel kind of secure with my bank and all that. All the rest of it, this sounds like a really naive, stupid question, but why do I really care?
There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Thank you, Celeste. But why does it really, if my money is secure, if they know what restaurant I went to, what I did, yes, it's a payoff. I get everything back that says to me, you know, I go to this place, now I get ads for it. And that's the kind of stuff I like. So at least it's helping me guide me where I'm going. Where is the harm in that aspect of it?
I completely agree with that. In fact, I think we don't have to be too much worried about a lot of things. That's what I also try to talk about a little bit before, is that, look, I mean, there are certain information that I'm little worried about to go online, but there are a lot of other information which are anyway there. And if I don't worry about it, I will rather enjoy the convenience.
Right.
And the nice thing that you mentioned about is, like, for banking and other stuff, I'm getting alerts. So
Yes.
even if, like, just following some of the very simple practices, right? So very simple practices are, keep looking for things. If you get an email saying, okay, change your password, changing password frequently is a good idea. Not putting in information if you don't need it is a good idea.
And I've always heard two-factor authentication. Get them to, when you put something in, get them to call you and give you a passcode.
Oh, it's so annoying, though.
It's so annoying, but it really
convenience and privacy, as I can
Zelle
say.
Convenience.
Well,
That's
Zelle had a
right.
big problem with people going to Zelle accounts, and if you have a Zelle account or any kind of account that involves your bank, get two-factor.
Yeah, look, if you're not worried about the information, get a very high level of insurance that covers a lot of stuff, and then just get rid of your
And then just
two-factor
go.
authentication. But if you care slightly, see, there is a trade-off, right? You can pay a slight amount of convenience and get a lot of security, right? So one of the things that I teach is the trade-off between certainty and resources. And one of the things here is a little bit of, convenience here goes very far in protecting a privacy. But again, like, if you are not worried too much, let's say you have an insurance and a peace of mind, whatever you think about, well, I don't care, then.
I think I need insurance
right.
because I got a lot of peace of mind here. I should have some insurance to back it up.
We want to remind you, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We have a call from Richard from Oak Forest. Richard, what's your comment or question?
Well, my comment was just banking security is kind of up to you. I keep my retirement savings in a different bank from my day-to-day. My day-to-day amounts to, $3,000 to $5,000 in walking around money. If somebody manages to get into that, I'll lose $3,000 to $5,000, which I might. If they get into my big stuff, they're not going to. They're not going to. They're in a separate bank. The bank has said if somebody hacks this, they're responsible.
So like spread the risk.
Yeah, diversifying the risk. Now, there are two things to note about diversifying the risk. It's a great idea because your impact is less, but because you're diversifying, the chances are even more.
Right.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So there is a trade-off there too, right? I mean, it's not easy. Life is like,
So I do have another question about passwords. How important are passwords when we are giving our information and creating accounts? Do they need to be 16 letters with caps and no caps?
Hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really don't want anybody to break into that, right? I mean, so first of all, there are two things. Why would somebody target you, right? I mean, generally there are random scans that are going there. If they target you, they can do some petty things. But if there are something really important and you're worried about, then yes, passwords are really important because there are like a whole bunch of attacks like brute force database attack, and plus there are AI attacks these days.
But if they're hacking and they've got does a random list of characters really secure your data? They've got ways in, don't they, around things like that?
No, so it's not that easy. So I'll tell you, both from a security perspective, like let's imagine from a hacker perspective. Even from a hacker perspective, it's not easy to get into your system. They either need to see certain vulnerability which the system has, or maybe they need to be able to crack it into your password.
But are they breaking into individual accounts, or are they breaking into a system that stores all the information?
So right now, the one we talked about, they are just getting breach into the system and getting the whole database, right? But let's say if I want to get some money from your bank account, right? That's a very different kind of thing, right? I mean, if I get your credit card information, obviously, maybe you able to use it or do something, but not a lot. But to get into your banking system, that is really hard, right? So for that, if your password is not secure, if you don't have a two-factor authentication, then it becomes a problem.
So funny to me. It's something so small and simple could carry so much weight in security.
Like, you know, I've said this before, you know, I come from a background of small business owners, and a lot of times they have multiple accounts and business accounts and things, and you have to be really careful and stay on top of it because you can be very vulnerable if you're not careful.
Okay, before we run out of time, I've got to ask you the future and technology. What's coming along that can help us in this quest to be safer?
Yeah, I mean, again, like obviously security upgrades happen. There are practices. So for example, I would say these days, a random person hacking into a bank account and stealing your money is very rare, right? So technology has already reached a level where even if they have to breach your bank account, they have to make a phone call to you, be a scammer and say, okay, send me money in this way and then hack it. It's not like somebody can automatically hack it. So things have gotten pretty secure that way. But yeah, data breaches that are still pretty hard because there is a whole database that a majority of companies are using a diversified strategy to manage. And we really don't know where the vulnerability is. But yeah, it will improve, right? It will improve over time. That's what is happening. Yeah.
Well, great advice.
So what you're saying is we're going to be okay.
We will be okay. Yeah, I think.
Do you have TikTok on your phone?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
I don't either. Professor Anshumali Shrivastava, thank you so much for joining us today. He's an associate professor of computer science, of electrical and computer engineering, and of statistics at Rice University. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss a big change in the Houston ISD wraparound service programs. Stay with us. You're listening to News 88.7.
You know how important trusted news is for your ability to make informed decisions. That's why News 88.7 is your station.
At Houston Public Media, we give you the facts clearly and honestly so you can make decisions about your life.
Don't let anything stand in the way of your right to stay informed. Donate today to ensure that trusted news remains free and available for everyone in our community.
Give right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Support comes from Houston Public Works, with information to prevent clogged pipes, backups, and unexpected expenses, like always throwing wipes, even the ones labeled flushable, in the trash, not the toilet. More at protectourpipes.org. Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Missy Mazzoli's contemporary opera Breaking the Waves, making its Houston debut at the Wortham Center now through May 4th. Tickets are available at hgo.org. Support comes from Central Market, offering daily scratch-made pastries.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello,
I'm
Houston.
sorry. I'm busy changing all my passwords.
Yeah, right?
now.
All 427 of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's so that everything is already out there.
See, my thing is I'll change my password and then I forget what the password is. Then I have to go
Right.
back and change it, and then they want the double authentication that it's sending to my email, and I just want to get into my HEB app.
Couldn't log into Plex yesterday on my mom's TV so that I could watch reruns of Dynasty. I mean, really, I don't need this.
Wow.
Anyway, welcome back to Hello Houston. We make light of it. I understand it's very
Very
serious.
serious.
And if you're in a data breach, how it can upset your entire world. And there's a lot going on there, a lot of bad players in this world. And the professor said he'll come back on as it stays in the news and help us along with it. So thank him for that.
That's right. And you can always send questions to talk@hellohouston.org. You know, moving on, Houston ISD is closing its wraparound service department, which provided students with free school supplies, food, clothing, and other resources. While the department is being eliminated, the services will not be cut, but rather shifted to the district's 7 Sunrise Centers, which offer services such as medical and mental health care, clothing, a food pantry, and more. With us now to tell us more is Asher Lehrer-Small, an education reporter covering Houston ISD for the Houston Landing. Asher, welcome to Hello Houston.
Asher, I'm not hearing you. Are you guys hearing Asher?
Nope.
Asher, hold on a second. Are you on mute? Asher's checking it there. There you are, Asher.
I'm
There
not
you are.
muted, but I can hear y'all. Can you hear me? I'm
We
happy
can
to
now.
be here.
I'm going to start with a really broad kind of lightning rod question, but should HISD be in the business of offering these kind of services?
Sure. It's definitely a question that hits the heart of this whole debate. I've been covering these wraparound services and the changes to this program over the last 2 years, essentially since the district underwent a state takeover in the summer of 2023. This is something that community members worried might be on the chopping block. So the wraparound program really was a signature program for HISD. The district's leadership before the takeover had said, hey, we want one of these specialists in every single school. So there's about 270 schools, and there was around 280 specialists in 2023. And what the idea was there is, look, if a student has barriers coming to class, maybe they're hungry, maybe they need transportation to get to school, the school needs to make sure that those barriers are not getting in the way of learning. So that was the theory, and it really was one of the most robust, biggest programs to support students' non-academic needs anywhere in the country.
So now there is these sunrise services outside. Centers. I know. I'm stumbling through this part of it. I'm getting to the question there. So they're picking up the slack theoretically for these moving out of the schools. Where do they fail students if they've simply moved the services over?
Well, no, it's a complicated setup, and you're not fumbling, because I think a lot of people in the HISD community are trying to get their heads around all of this. So last year, the shift started last year, essentially. 7 of these Sunrise Centers rolled out, and at the time, the administration, Superintendent Miles, said these were not going to replace wraparound services because students' non-academic needs were still really high. We're talking about mental health challenges, all these sorts of things that students might be navigating post-pandemic, poverty-related issues. But then at the end of the year, facing a really big budget deficit, the district kind of did a 180 and they cut the majority of those wraparound services. Last year, it went from roughly 280 specialists to just 60. So this year, when they made the cuts, it was really just the last fraction of the remaining program. And what I think a lot of people are worried about is if you're thinking about a family or a student that is already facing resource issues, they could also see some difficulty in getting the transportation to get to a resource hub. And HISD, actually, they recently passed in a board meeting to open an 8th center. So there will be 8 centers next year, but still families need to get themselves there. Now, HISD says they bring certain resources to campuses, and they offer transportation to families to get to those centers. But when I've spoken to families, they've kind of shared anecdotes of like, hey, I've reached out to the Sunrise Center, I never heard back. or I tried to show up there, I didn't get the resources I need, or it was too far away and now I'm out, I don't have access to a car, so I haven't been able to go back. So I think a number of community members and community advocates who I've spoken to worry that there are now going to be these gaps where kids might not be having access to the sorts of things that help them get to school ready to learn.
Asher Lehrer-Small is an education reporter covering Houston ISD for the Houston Landing. Asher, thanks so much for joining us today on Hello Houston. Coming up on Hello Houston, we discuss the United States and China's trade relationship with University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll discuss U.S. relations with China and a possible Houston recession with University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also be joined by Rice University's Director of School Literacy and Culture Program to explain more about their new OWL Literacy Program for dual language students.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, today is Earth Day, and in celebration, the City of Houston will join members of the art community and civic leaders to announce that Mason Park in Houston's East End will be the permanent home of the Arc of Time.
Also, we want to know your thoughts, so give us a call, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A U.S. official tells NPR the administration is searching for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's replacement. Hegseth is mired in controversy after a New York Times report that he shared military operational details in a Signal group chat on his private cell with his wife, brother, and personal lawyer. The information shared was about airstrikes in Yemen in March, shortly after he shared similar details in another Signal group chat with top administration officials that inadvertently also included a journalist. On Fox, Hegseth slammed his critics.
What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning. At the beginning, it was left-wing reporters from The Atlantic who got a hold of it and then wanted to create a problem for the president. This is what it's all about, trying to get at President Trump and his agenda.
The White House initially called reports of searching for Hegseth's replacement fake news. The U.S. financial markets have been a top destination for global investors for decades, but as NPR's Raphael Nam tells us, President Trump's tariff shock and criticism of Fed Chair Jerome Powell are sparking fears the U.S. may no longer be seen as a safe haven.
Something unusual has been happening in U.S. markets ever since Trump unveiled more tariffs this month. Stocks, bonds, and the dollar have all been falling at the same time. That rarely happens. Usually, at times of uncertainty, U.S. bonds and the dollar tend to gain. The fear in Wall Street is that those declines reflect foreign investors cutting their exposure to the U.S. It's hard to fully know so far, but if true, it would have major implications. It would likely mean foreign investors no longer see the U.S. as a safe place to invest, and that would be game-changing for the global financial system. Raphael Nam, NPR News.
Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University student President Trump's trying to deport over his pro-Palestinian activism, missed the birth of his first child. NPR's Adrian Florido reports Khalil had requested temporary release from immigration detention.
Since ICE agents arrested him in New York last month, they've held Khalil at a remote detention center in Louisiana. His lawyers have been trying to free him while his federal lawsuit challenging his arrest as unconstitutional moves forward. On Sunday, his wife went into labor. Khalil's lawyers asked the director of ICE's Louisiana office to temporarily release him so he could attend the birth. The request was quickly denied. Mark Vanderhoot is one of Khalil's lawyers.
He had certainly hoped and expected that the government would show some humanity, but they did not.
His baby was born the next day. Khalil listened on the phone. Adrian Florido, NPR News.
The Dow is up more than 1,000 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Houston ISD is shuttering its wraparound services department. As News 88.7's Colleen de Guzman reports, the program was providing students with resources like free food and school supplies.
In a letter sent last week, the district's Deputy Chief of Family and Community Partnerships, Naja Callender, wrote that the program's model no longer fits HISD. Callender says the program was, quote, designed for a very different version of HISD. She also says the district is now guiding students who need non-educational support to one of the district's 7 Sunrise Centers. There, students can access services such as medical and mental health care, clothing, and a food pantry. State-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles has been shrinking the wraparound services department over the last couple of years. Hundreds of staff members were let go last month. I'm Colleen de Guzman, News 88.7.
Houston Mayor John Whitmire supports a constitutional amendment to strengthen the ability of judges to hold alleged violent offenders without bond. He says some Harris County judges release those who should stay behind bars or set bonds too low.
The problem is judges hide behind the Constitution language which says everyone's entitled to a bond. No one will discuss how antiquated that is. That was written in 1836 because the settlers were being locked up by the Mexican government and they never got released, so they put that language in their Constitution.
If passed by the Texas House, it will go before voters as a constitutional amendment in November. And sexually transmitted diseases are spreading faster in Houston compared to other major Texas cities. That's according to Harris County Public Health Department, which says HIV in particular is spreading at nearly twice the rate in Harris County since 2017 compared to Texas overall. And today is Earth Day, so be sure to enjoy the beautiful sunshine while you can. It's currently 81 degrees. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Kauffman Foundation, providing access to opportunities that help people achieve financial stability, upward mobility, and economic prosperity regardless of race, gender, or geography. Kauffman.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston. As I like to say, it's the noon hour. We've made it to midday. But it's only midday if, you wake up way too early. Is this the middle of the day? I still feel like we're just getting going when noon hits.
Well, it's a whole different time zone, right? We go from morning to afternoon.
Well, yes, we do. The latest news is here. I want to mention something. We had Asher Lehrer-Small with us talking about the wraparound service department in HISD and shifting to Sunrise Centers. And there are only 2 times in the entire time of our show that we have to jump out at a given moment. And that's the top of each hour, as we call it. So unfortunately, it got really tight with Asher because we've gone longer earlier in the show. We are trying to get Asher back on because we feel like we just began to set up the topic, but didn't get into the meat of it and what we really wanted to talk about. So if we can get Asher back with us, we're working on that right now. So don't you worry. If you're interested in more on that story, it's coming up in just a little bit. While we look into that, we want to remind you, you are always welcome to give us a call at 713-440-8870. You can email us, talk@hellohouston.org, and we're on YouTube. either come to us at hellohouston.org and click the button, or go to YouTube and look for Houston Public Media.
Big orange button.
Big orange button. Frank's favorite thing, the big orange button.
You can't miss it.
You can't miss it. So, coming up this hour, we're also going to be talking about what's going on with the trade war between U.S. and China, and that may seem very big and out of our... But how does it affect us right here in the Bayou City? We're going to be talking with Ed Hers about that from University of Houston. But while we work on everything that we've been talking about...
There's a lot.
Let's hit some headlines while we're waiting.
Yes. So the man who killed 23 people in a racist attack targeting Mexicans at a Walmart in El Paso back in 2019 has been sentenced to 23 consecutive life sentences after he pleaded guilty in state court Monday morning. Patrick Crucius accepted a plea deal offered by the El Paso District Attorney's Office in return for not pursuing the death penalty. We want to hear from you. Do you agree with the plea deal in this case, or do you think the death penalty should have been pursued? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. District Attorney James Montoya said he offered the deal after a request from the majority of the families of those killed in trying to bring this case to a close.
Because a death penalty could be appealed and appealed and appealed and appealed. I mean, it could be 20 years before a person that's sentenced to death actually gets death.
Right.
So that's part of it. I mean, I understand the closure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Throughout my life, I have gone back and forth on this topic.
The death penalty?
Yeah.
I could not be on a jury and do it.
Right. I find that very hard. I believe that there are crimes that happen, such as this one, that are reprehensible and that there is no forgiveness for what happened there. I know we're supposed to forgive and move on and all of that, but it's very hard. But, I
don't think there's a lot of proof that it deters other murders.
Well, the 2019 shooting is considered one of the worst attacks on Hispanics in the U.S. Hours before the attack, Crucius published an online creed saying he was responding to the Hispanic invasion of Texas. And if this goes back to, we have to hold our leaders, our public figures accountable for rhetoric and the things that they say, because people take their words very seriously. And so we look at this, and it's sad because this was extremely tragic, and I agree that the families just wanted closure. Yeah,
I think that's probably it, and it would have taken so long to actually get him somewhere to take his life.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's a difficult one. Let us know what you think. 713-440-8870.
Hey, we had a couple of interesting comments off air on the Hegseth. Do you want to?
Yeah, Olivia from Spring commented on the Hegseth story. We were talking about the breach of information, that he was using Signal yet a second time. We found out about it and the reaction that's been getting. So we opened it up for you folks. Give us your opinion on what's going on with Hegseth and the Department of Defense. And Olivia from Spring wrote and said, I'm a former military, and there's a selective amount of accountability for the Secretary of Defense. If a service member did this, there would be serious repercussions for their actions, repercussions that Hegseth is not getting. So true there.
Anna from Sugarland says, why are we surprised about this administration? We know he chose them because he's a criminal, and he chose them to cover his crimes. We are in serious trouble as a country. Again, we've talked about calling the president a criminal. I'm not going to call him a criminal, so, despite the fact that he has been convicted of some of those crimes.
I do think Olivia from Spring brings up a very interesting point. I feel like in almost any industry, if you did something, if you sign a non-disclosure agreement and then, you text the organization about the actual information that you just signed about, you'd get in deep trouble.
Yep.
Right. Well, it's like you have to stay by the same rules as everyone in your organization.
Right.
And so it doesn't set a good precedent if people can be and have been let go for leaking, sharing, putting things in insecure areas, and yet the absolute top of that organization does it, and it's like, well, that's fake news.
Goes to
you're
leadership.
Just making something.
Goes to leadership.
Yeah. Moving on. we have President Trump has told the Pentagon. I think this story's fascinating because I'm old enough to remember when this was going on with Reagan. But anyway, President Trump has told the Pentagon to take another look at missile defense. Technology to shoot down missiles has existed for decades, but the kind of missile shield Trump is looking to build would be much more complex and expensive. A key part of the new missile defense system, which Trump described as Golden Dome in a speech earlier this year, would likely be space-based interceptors, according to experts, and an executive order signed by the president. A number of defense companies have expressed interest in trying to build a Golden Dome. If this idea sounds kind of familiar, we know about the one that Israel has, the Iron Dome, which they use to protect Israel from incoming missiles. And of course, theirs is only iron, so ours has to be gold. And the president has this theory. What do you think? Are you in favor of this Golden Dome idea, or is it just another way defense companies will make money? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Of course, I go back to Star Wars, which is what they called it during the Reagan era.
And I think it had something to do with the Berlin Wall coming down, because we got very tough with Gorbachev when we had the Star Wars. I mean, I think that Russia really believed that
we never built Star Wars. It was a concept out there that we would be able to block anything that they would shoot at us. So therefore, whatever you have doesn't matter.
Right.
Israel has built something that works. The difference here is Israel is so small, and they're able to control that small area of airspace. What happens the size of the United States? What kind of technology could do this? I remember, of course, back with Star Wars, the technology didn't exist. Now does it? Could this really work? Celeste, you keep smiling at me, and I'm very worried.
I'm making a small in my mind, I kind of chuckle to myself that we will have the most gaudy missile.
Big gold
we
dome,
know
really?
President Trump loves gold. You know, he
gold-plated. It'll be gold-plated.
He loves like his gold watches that he was selling. But
I actually think technology, if you can diffuse the ability for others to attack in this manner, that is a good thing.
Yes.
Because simply the concept of doing it's not worth it to them, and it de-escalates that. The other side of it is it makes me worry, what will they come up with next? And they being the global population, to find a way to attack. If missiles don't work anymore and you can't shoot a nuclear warhead because it's going to be blown up in space, then what do they do? Because don't think they're going to say, well, they beat us, it's all over. It's going to be an escalation of some sort. But I want us protected.
Well, I like your question. Can you really do this?
Right.
Because I'm not sure how you would do it.
Yeah.
Because if you shoot down a missile, are you going to shoot down a missile with another missile?
Well, yeah, lasers kind of can, I don't know, I'm thinking very Star Warsy. But then you worry, what happens when it misfires? What happens if something is misidentified? That's a problem that you could have. Ponder that, 713-440-8870. What do you think? You want a Golden Dome over this country? Do you think it would work? Let's go over to our phones for another story. We're going to get Joshua is on the line from Sugar Land. Joshua, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I just have a simple comment with regard to the putting that.
Joshua, you're kind of breaking up on us. Can you do me a favor and call us right back, and we'll try and get you on a better line. You're cracking up, so we can't hear you. But I do know that he's calling back to the death penalty story we were talking about.
Just talking about
a minute ago.
So hopefully we'll hear back from Joshua.
Yeah.
All right, guess what today is?
I know, because I can see it in your eyes, Frank.
It's Earth Day. It's actual Earth Day.
Beautiful.
I know. How about that? In celebration, the city of Houston will join members of the arts community and civic leaders to announce that Mason Park in Houston's East End will be the permanent home of the Arch of Time. Did you see it?
I looked it up. It's
fabulous.
Awesome.
It's amazing. It is amazing. The Arch of Time will be an impressive 100-foot tall public art installation, the world's largest freestanding sundial. It will fully power the park with 400,000 kilowatt hours of clean solar energy each year. This Arch of Time was designed by the renowned Houston architect Ricardo Mariano, and the event is going to actually happen right after our show at 1 p.m. at Houston City Hall on Bagby Street. Now, if you've gone to Ricardo Mariano's website, or if you just Google Arch of Time, you'll find it. This is not a typical sundial. Like you look at a sundial and it has a little spoke and the sun hits that spoke and the shadow goes around. This actually creates an opening, so it reverses. It's solid and then an opening for the sun to come through this arched design and tell us what time it is by reflecting on the floor. And it does it every 15 minutes. So you get 1:15, 1:30, 1:45, 2 o'clock. It is magnificent. I wish Ricardo was here to talk to us about it. I guess he's busy because at 1 o'clock they have their installation.
Yeah.
But we did invite him to be on because I would love to know how he came up with this whole idea of a reverse sundial.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful piece as far as architecture and art.
And, you know, it's another reason why we have to get rid of daylight savings time, because then you have to move the arch so that it could for an hour.
Are we back to that argument?
I'm just joking. No, it is fascinating. And as far as, thank you, as far as public art goes, it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
You know, and yet it does more than just look pretty. It also harnesses solar power for us.
For the whole park, 400,000 megawatts of...
We're going to have to get him on to discuss it and potentially show some photos of it.
I'll tell you a couple other things, fascinating things I'm sure you want to know, that today is National School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. I remember my elementary school bus driver.
I never took the bus to school.
I didn't either.
Well, I
Were
did.
we at the same school?
My mom would drop me off, or my dad would drop me off.
We had
in the mornings.
carpool. So one parent would have Monday, one parent would have Tuesday, because you could get, we didn't have seat belts. You could get,
Pile them in.
I mean, we did, but we didn't wear them. But you could get
appreciate-
5 kids in the car, right, next to the adults. That we didn't have devices in between on the seats to keep you from having 3 people in the front seat. So you'd
If
have
this
3
is where you went on bus driver appreciation day, you're going to love it. It's also National Jelly Bean Day. What story do you have about that?
Well, remember Reagan? That was his big thing. All
He
those
does have
jelly
a
beans
story.
in the Reagan administration.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jelly Bean Day came, though, a couple days too late, because I was celebrating jelly beans on Easter.
Oh, because of Easter? Well, maybe they didn't want to be all convoluted with all the other peeps and chocolate caramels and all that.
Could be that. Could be that, too. And then you mentioned it's Earth Day. So besides that wonderful piece of public art, what does Earth Day mean to you, Frank?
It makes for awareness for a cleaner environment.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and there are great websites with all kinds of things to do as a family or just yourself individually. Just to use a trash can.
Yeah.
Right. Don't litter.
So
let's all remember the Earth on Earth Day.
Well, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to tell you what Earth Day means to me.
Give a hoot. Don't pollute.
Earth Day means, what it means to me is I love the fact that Mother Nature is our Earth, Mother Earth. And so it's a moment where you can sit outside wherever you might live and just think about what nature is and take a moment to breathe in fresh air and exhale.
Write a poem.
And write a poem.
I think that I
Read
shall
a
never
poetry.
see a poem as beautiful as a tree, something like that.
And
Joyce
I was
Carol
not
Oates.
ignoring you, Sluss, because I was going to throw the last story to you, which is this is the 20th anniversary of, believe it or not, the first YouTube video.
Really?
Interesting.
Doesn't it seem like it was around longer than 20 years?
No.
All right. Well, then,
I believe.
since you folks
Okay,
have
so 20 years, that would have been, what is that? Do the math.
05.
05. Yes, that's what I was thinking.
It was an easy
because
one.
I was in high school. I graduated in 05.
You know what? Joshua's going to save us from this. Joshua is back on the line. He was
Oh,
calling
great.
earlier about a story we had done in regards to the death penalty, and we had
Yes.
bad sound with him, so we connected back with him. Joshua, what's on your mind?
Good morning, everybody.
Thank
Yes,
you. You sound much better.
Thank you for taking my call, too. I think the death penalty, for him to remain in jail, is a very good judgment, in my view, because every single day he wakes up, he will be thinking of what he has done, what good has done for him. It's a very, very, very good way. It's not even punishment right now. It's a torture on his own life for the rest of his life. If he was put today, he would have been forgotten. He forget himself. He doesn't know anything. But for this to be in jail, it's just a learning lesson for him to say, why do I do this? What is the point?
Joshua, thank you very much for that. That's kind of an ongoing debate that people have about the death penalty. Once the death penalty has been enacted, it is done. But to live with the knowledge of what you did is in some ways, a more horrific punishment that goes on for a lifetime. I mean,
some people change. I mean, the whole Menendez brothers thing has come back to life.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of debate about that.
I want us to do a segment on the Menendez brothers and what's going on there. They were up for parole. They're off for parole. The DA switched to change the whole idea. The family wants them to be released. Have they really changed? What have they done? It's a fascinating story. We'll get back to that.
All right.
We'll get back to that.
All right.
That's right. Coming up on Hello Houston, we discuss the United States and China's trade relationship with University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, in a personal and unflinching film, renowned historian Sir Simon Schama confronts the history of the concentration camps. Watch The Holocaust 80 Years On, tonight at 8 on TV8. Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Missy Mazzoli's contemporary opera Breaking the Waves, making its Houston debut at the Wortham Center now through May 4th. Tickets are available at hgo.org. Support comes from UT Austin's McCombs School of Business, offering the Weekend MBA in Houston. Classes held in person on alternating weekends. Campus visit April 25th and 26th. Registration available at texasmba.com. Make it here.
Support comes from the Dan L. Duncan Comprehensive Cancer Center at Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, offering comprehensive cancer care that is compassionate, personalized, and driven by clinical research. More at stlukeshealth.org/cancer.
Support comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, showcasing Smash Mouth in concert with songs like Walkin' on the Sun, All Star, and more this Friday. Open to the public. Info at milleroutdoortheater.org. Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com. Support comes from Carr, Riggs & Ingram, CPAs and Advisors, a top 25 nationally ranked full-service accounting and advisory firm offering tax, audit, accounting, consulting, and advisory services. Learn more at cricpa.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Celeste.
Hey, Frank. Welcome
Hello,
back.
Frank. Hello, Celeste.
Hello, Houston.
Ernie. Hello, Houston.
All right, we're done saying hello to everyone. Okay, here we go. President Trump's trade war with China continues to escalate. Yesterday, leaders in Beijing warned other countries not to work with the U.S. to restrict trade to China. This comes after Bloomberg reported that President Trump would ease or remove tariffs for countries that work with the U.S. to sabotage trade with China. Back and forth, back and forth. How far will this trade war with China go? When will one or both sides concede? And how will this affect us right here at home? To discuss, we welcome a dear friend to our station, Ed Hurst. He's an energy fellow in the Department of Economics at the University of Houston. Ed, good to see you again.
Thank you, Ernie.
Hello, Ed.
Frank.
So how bad's it going to get?
It's going to get worse. And so
Why is that?
We've already seen steel prices jump across Texas. The oil patch started hoarding tubulars as soon as President Trump was elected. The domestic producers have increased their prices up to that 25%. You know, this is not so much a trade war as it is a tax war. And the Trump administration is applying these tariffs, and quite honestly, it's a tax. There is no way we can bring this kind of manufacturing intensity, level, and investment back into the borders of the United States during his term. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the capital equipment to do it. We may not actually have the academic and professional expertise to do it without bringing in workers from India, workers from China. We don't have that many steel mills left. We don't have the size and scope and scale that's required.
I want to step out a little bit to the whole back and forth tit for tat that's going on, with the reporting being that the U.S. will ease off on tariffs if people don't support China, and the China saying, well, we'll work with you if you don't support the U.S. in this. To understand all of that, I think what I need to know is, what is the relationship with China in the southeast region of the globe? And do they have a good trade relationship with other? Because I almost feel as though for the Trump policy to work, they have to have bad relations. China has to have bad relationships with everyone.
Yeah, so it appears that the Trump administration is trying to divide and conquer and isolate China. But China has spent the last 3 decades becoming an integral part of its neighbors' economies. During the first Trump administration, Trump piled on tariffs on top of China. These were counteracted by China devaluing its currency, essentially offsetting that increased tax, and also by U.S. manufacturers moving some of their manufacturing out of China, moving it to Thailand, Malaysia, and Mexico. And that was the Trump administration's latest salvo, if you will, against those nations. This manufacturing expertise with the inexpensive labor is what pushed China to the forefront. But now it's their technical expertise. We've always had an intellectual property issue with China. China doesn't respect trademarks and patents and those types of IP. And so they can make stuff a whole lot less expensively than we can.
But if the trade partners with China step back from their relationship with China, who fills that void? We can't in the U.S.
No, we can't. And they're not going to step back. And everybody in the global market sees that. That's why the dollar is down over 5% against other currencies, and why the price of gold, for example, is up. People are leaving the U.S. economy and selling their U.S. dollar-denominated assets as quickly as they can.
People forget that COVID came from Wuhan, China, because of the huge manufacturing partnership we have with China. And it also spread to Italy. But it was all about fashion and all. I think every sneaker we wear comes from China or very close to it, Southeast Asia, along with tons of clothing. It seems like every time I get something from Amazon, it's coming from China.
Yep. Yeah, very few shirts and shoes are made in the United States anymore.
Even as we've seen Trump paraphernalia, where you see the Make America Great hats and all that stuff, his ties made in China.
Yes.
Well, Beijing just recently put out that they are warning countries against colluding with the U.S. to restrict trade with China. Do you think other countries will fall suit to China?
I think they're going to stay friendly with China. China, if we do cut off Chinese imports, which is a huge amount of business for us, they're going to be looking for other markets to sell into. And so one of the things that we've seen already in the oil patch, Rystad Energy had a column on this today, the oil field services companies in the U.S. are unable to source equipment out of China right now. And so they would bring it in here and then resell it across the Middle East, North Africa. Well, now China's going to go direct. They don't have any reason to go through Halliburton or Schlumberger or Baker Hughes here in town. And so this is going to be a reordering of trade routes across the globe. And the U.S. is basically ceding market share in almost every business that we have, even devaluing the dollar by half, which would make our goods less expensive for everybody across the globe, and is one of the central tenets of the Project 2025 manifesto, is not going to restore us to the grandeur of the 19th century.
So, and I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of the voters who are associated with the oil industry, they were very supportive of the drill baby drill rhetoric. Do they still feel that's where their support should be? And I know we can't speak for them, but don't you think a lot of them are scratching their heads and saying, how the heck did we get into this situation?
Well, those who work in the oil patch,
right,
put their MAGA hats aside and voted for Harris when they went in because they knew that drill baby drill wasn't going to work. Under the Obama administration, the price of oil was significantly higher than it was under Trump 1.0. And remember, during Trump 1.0, he explicitly stated the price for getting away with murder is cheap oil. And he got that from Saudi Arabia and OPEC. During the Biden administration, the price of oil was significantly higher than Trump 1.0, and we're seeing that now. Drill baby drill was never going to work. The Dallas Fed points out that in its survey at the end of 2024, more than 80% of the respondents weren't going to drill a well if the price of oil was not going to be $70 a barrel or higher going forward. All the forward curves show the price of oil dipping down to 50 before too much longer, and OPEC Plus has geared up production. So now the guys in the oil patch are facing having lost $10 to $20 a barrel of revenue in terms of price. Now Trump has kindly said, well, I'll relieve some of the regulatory requirements, but at most, that's only $5 a barrel. With the 25% steel tariffs, that's increased the cost of some of these big wells in the Permian, the 3-mile laterals, by 15%, because you've got 3 miles of tubulars in the ground. The Texas Rangers are spending a lot of time chasing folks who are stealing tubulars out of new wells, old wells, any yard they can find. And so the independent oil producers in the Permian Basin, where we produce about 4 million barrels a day in Texas, they're facing much higher cost and a prospect of much lower revenue streams.
How do you feel about this whiplash? I know we want to reset. Yeah. We're talking. Tell us who we're talking to.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We're talking with Ed Hers, who's an energy fellow in the Department of Economics at the University of Houston. We're talking about the China-U.S. trade situation, tariff situation. Give us a call with your questions or thoughts at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
And I was asking about this whiplash of the stock market. It's up today. The Dow's right as we speak, it's up 650 points. But every day it's down 1,000, up 1,000, down 1,000, up. How can we sustain that as every single day?
Uncertainty is the enemy of financial markets. And so the greater the level of the uncertainty, the more volatility we're going to see across the financial markets, the price of oil, the price of natural gas, you name it. Big companies in Houston are holding back on their investments right now. They're slowing down their activity. CFOs are just terrified of what the next policy shift is going to be. I've got students working in supply chain all around the city. They've been working 16, 18-hour days trying to figure out, what do I do? My company doesn't manufacture anything here. Our supply chains from China are being disrupted. Mexico disrupted. Canada, poor Canada. The Canadians could fix the trade imbalance very easily. They could cut off the supply of oil to the U.S., the supply of electricity to the U.S., and that would remedy the trade deficit with Canada right away. They could sell their lumber directly to IKEA. They don't have to sell it to us. And that would, of course, explode the myth of U.S. energy independence because we can't backfill that.
We invite you to always share your thoughts and questions with us at 713-440-8870. Steve is on the line from Cyprus. Steve, what's on your mind today?
I was listening to the points your guest made, and when he talks about a lack of expertise and a lack of manufacturing capacity in this country, those are things we should be trying to reverse. We shouldn't capitulate to it and embrace it. Mm-hmm. And as a driver on the road, when you hear the price of oil's down, I hear the price of gasoline is down. And that doesn't make me unhappy.
Steve, we'll get a comment from Ed right now. Thank you for your comments.
No, you're absolutely right. But we have not nurtured our manufacturing for the longest time in the United States. This is not something you can turn on a dime. This is going to cause a complete reordering of the economy. And of course, one of the reasons the price of gasoline is down is because OPEC has increased production. That's not going to help us in Texas at all. And they did this in 2014, 2015, 2016, ran a price war that sent a lot of the Texas oil patch to the bankruptcy court. We have not spent or had as a national initiative any reason to push our sciences, our STEM learning and teaching going forward. I've been a teacher for undergrads for more than 45 years now. This is something we've neglected. And, taking a look at the voucher system that the Texas State House and the governor want to push, that's going to further deteriorate our teaching and academic standards across Texas. We're not training future generations to run a country.
Ed, we got a call from Raymond. He wants to know, what's your forecast for Trump's tariffs at Christmas?
I have absolutely no way of analyzing that.
Well, it's day to day.
It's day to day. I'm an economist, not a psychiatrist.
Well said. I could use both right now.
Right. I do want to ask you one question about, you mentioned the Baker Hughes and Schlumberger's, our local, very mid-sized, larger oil and gas companies. How is this going to affect them? Obviously, it is hurting them and hitting them, but what does that look like for Houstonians that potentially are sitting there wondering about their job?
Be careful. Keep your resume updated. In this direction, we're going to see layoffs, and they're going to hit the oil field services first. The oil companies out in the Permian are just going to stop drilling. There are layoffs underway right now in terms of the workforce in the fields. That's going to be a challenge. Keep in mind, energy. Oil and gas in particular has been the worst performer across the S&P 500 for more than a dozen years now. No one on Wall Street wants to put money with the oil patch because it just burns it. It doesn't give a great rate of return. And so, given an alternative of investing in Service Corporation, which has a steady business, or a food company or Microsoft, these companies get better rates of return than oil and gas.
The question that I keep bringing up to different economists who sit here and trying to always find the benefit of the doubt in all of this, can you see anywhere in this plan that there is some masterful oversight plan of changing the world order in a way to get us to a better, we see the president saying things like, it's going to be a few rough years, but this is to reorder things so we're in a better position. Do you see a plan that makes that possible?
No.
Well, that was an answer.
Yeah, no, that was my question too. I feel like I'm in quicksand. And, I used to watch Tarzan all the time, and somebody would be in quicksand, remember? And just at the last minute, Tarzan would come and give them a vine, and they would get themselves out.
That's not happening here.
So then what do you think is at play here then?
I really can't say. And I don't think anybody in the current administration knows how this is going to play out. I mean, we had the specter of the U.S. trade representative in front of Congress a week and a half ago, and Trump turned on a dime, and the committee chairman asked him, said, you didn't know this, did you?
No.
It's just changed in the last 5 minutes.
Well, could Congress come in, could our representatives step in, Republican or Democrat, all of them, and say, look, we've got to fix this because this country is in really bad shape?
Absolutely.
Then why don't they?
They certainly should. I mean, this is actually a 14th Amendment issue. Taxation without due process. The Trump administration is finessing everything they can around the different laws. I mean, going back to things that were passed in the 1700s. I mean, for goodness sake. But the tariffs are a tax. That's something you and I,
it's taxation without representation. It's how we founded this country.
We're all going to be paying this. Yeah. And the specter that, the press secretary said, well, tariffs are not a tax. They're a bonus. They're a gift to the American people. I mean, goodness gracious.
Now, some have been saying that, President Trump is a disruptor. This is what he wanted to do. We needed a shakeup in this country. Do you think going this route, looking at tariffs, potentially right now, again, President Trump has said it himself, we might feel it a little bit right now, but in the long run, we are going to be putting the country back in the right direction that we need to be going towards?
There are different ways to change course, and just spinning a ship in the middle of the ocean without any clear direction, without any path forward, is not the way to be doing this.
So if you were his advisor, what would you be telling him to do?
I'd be saying stop this thing, or, without question, he's going to lose the House and the Senate in 2026.
Let me ask you this. Has the damage already been done?
A huge amount of damage has been done. The withdrawal of USAID, which was, our entree to many of the developing nations where we made friends. Well, now we've ceded that to China. We've stepped out. This is isolationism at a level we haven't seen since pre-Depression. Mm-hmm. And then during the Depression with the Smoot-Hawley tariff, the idea that we're totally independent from the rest of the globe is just gone. And this is a nation of immigrants. There's no question that we all have ancestors and friends and family in nations across the world. We're the place everybody wants to come to. We've been able to keep a booming economy mainly because of our net increase in population over the last 5 decades. Europe has a diminished birth rate. Europe has diminished immigration. Europe is dropping away. Russia, ghost cities across it. China, the same thing. Mm-hmm. Inverted population. And so there's a lot of competition right now for dominance on the world stage. And this is the wrong way to go about doing it. We see this in a playground with 5-year-olds, the one who comes over and kicks over the sandcastle or the building blocks and then walks away. That, I'm afraid, is what we're seeing here.
Ed, thank you so much.
Thank you. You make me wish I was in college again.
Well, you don't do that for me. I'm happy to be out, but I do love hearing what you have to say.
Ed Hurst is an energy fellow in the Department of Economics at the University of Houston. Coming up, we talk to the director, School of Literacy and Culture at Rice University's Glasscock School about the university's Owl Lab, a literacy center for young dual language students. As Hello Houston continues, stay with us.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
A healthy democracy depends on people like you having access to clear, trustworthy news. That's how you can make informed choices about your future.
Houston Public Media's reporting gives you the facts without the noise, so you can make decisions with confidence.
But we can't do that without your support. Stand up for your right to information.
Support the reporting that you count on at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, performing Beethoven's 7th Symphony with conductor Matthias Pincher. Plus, Cedric Tabergian performs Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 20, May 1st, 3rd, and 4th. Tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Holdsworth Center's Champions of Hope series, featuring 6 Texas education leaders who are uplifting their communities and leading with heart. More about their stories at holdsworthcenter.org.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting Wagner's Tannhäuser in a production featuring tenor Russell Thomas on stage at Wortham Theater, April 25th through May 11th. Tickets are available at hgo.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Welcome back to Hello Houston.
I love having Ed Hurst on because there's a thoughtful calmness and when he talks, even when it's news you don't want to hear. And it comes from the numbers, from his experience in economics and understanding how the systems work. So it's not politically motivated. It's not reactionary in the hysterical version of that word.
No, but it still scares the heck out of me.
Oh, it is scary.
I mean,
and we've had guests say, Houston's in great shape, and Ed's pointing out, but the industry that is here is getting hit, and it's going to get rough.
And to his other point, we're all from somewhere. We have relatives and relationships all over the world. 145 languages are spoken across Houston.
King of segue.
I mean, 145. And today we have Rice University's Oral and Written Language Lab to talk about. This is also known as OWL. Everyone loves a good acronym, right? It was created to help support Houston's growing population of dual language learners. The lab, which grew out of Rice's School Literacy and Culture program, provides a language-rich learning environment where children can develop skills in both their first and their second languages. And with us now to tell us more is Jordan Khadam-Hir.
Yes, sir.
He's the director of Rice University School Literacy and Culture program. So, Jordan, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
So tell us more. Now, I looked at the OWL program. It seems to me mostly Spanish-English. Is that right or wrong?
It depends. So we have 9 OWL labs across the Houston area, and it really depends on where the school is that we're centered in. So we have a couple of labs in the Gulfton community, and in the Gulfton area, there could be up to 20 languages spoken in one classroom.
Really?
But we also have many labs where Spanish and English are the predominant.
So of the 20, just name a few. I'm sure Vietnamese would be one of them.
Yes. And then we have different Middle Eastern languages. So things like Pashto are also languages spoken in the classroom. But the emphasis of the OWL labs is to make sure that we're bolstering children in both of their languages. So even if a teacher does not speak the same language as the children, we support them with second language.
That was going to be my question, because it's going to be hard to have 20 teachers with all 20 different languages. So
absolutely. So the way we do that is through having students tell their stories. And so we encourage teachers to have children share their stories. The teacher acts as a scribe as they take their stories, and then children dramatize the stories and act them out. They assign their classmates to be the cast and then dramatize it.
Is the goal to teach them English?
Yes and no. It's to make them confident in both languages. But recent information out of the Kinder Institute tells us that there is a growing percentage of emergent bilingual students in our Houston public schools. Between the 2011 and 12 school year and the 2023-24 school year, the percentage of emergent bilingual students increased to 55%. And so that's not an increase in enrollment necessarily. It's a decrease in the classification of how many students are proficient in English. And so that means our job, especially as early childhood teachers, is to bolster language.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, oftentimes when we think about learning a second language or studying your own language, it's mostly written, grammar, all that. Your program pushes an emphasis on the oral, on the spoken word.
Yes, sir.
And why is that significant? You call me sir. I feel so proper now. It must be a smart question. But so why is it important that the oral aspect of language be focused on?
Yes. So at Rice School Literacy and Culture, we define literacy as listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And listening and speaking are what precedes reading and writing. And so that's where it starts in early childhood. So we serve students as young as 2 and 3 years old in a couple classrooms, infancy. So we have them when they're very young. And so that's where we start, is with listening and speaking. And when those skills are well developed, the transfer to reading and writing is much easier.
And so you were saying that one of the strategies that y'all use is they can use their classmates. I mean, so it's kind of also like a theater class a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
and so
it is.
Why would you what is it about theater that connects students to that oral aspect to it?
Yes, it's experiential learning. So that's a technique we really emphasize in all K-12 programs, is when we can get children to experience learning, they internalize it better. And so that same thing for oral language development too, is when they're telling their own story and then getting to dramatize it and seeing it come to life. That's when the magic happens.
Yeah. About how many kids are actually learning this right now?
So right now in the greater Houston area, we have 9 OWL labs, and collectively this year we're serving around 3,500 students through those labs. Most of our labs act as ancillary classrooms on their campuses, so like things like PE, music, art. Students will come to the OWL lab as an ancillary class. So most of our OWL lab teachers will see their whole campus if they're in an early childhood center.
It's a lot of kids.
It is a lot of kids.
Yeah.
For many years, I had the honor of hosting the Houston Public Media Spelling Bee, and very multilingual, and the kids from all walks of life, all different backgrounds. One thing I always noticed was the students who did the best in there always talked about the family involvement in the study. That's something you bring into the OWL labs too, is it's not just the students showing up, there's family involvement.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a component of all of our programs at School Literacy and Culture, especially because we deal with children who are so young. Families are an integral component of their education. So we make sure that we host families not only in our oral and written language labs, but in all of our programs. So we have 2 other programs that kind of support the teachers who become the OWL Lab teachers, both Classroom Storytelling and the Early Literacy Leadership Academy. And all of those programs have threads of families throughout. And we ensure that teachers host parent engagement, we usually call them events, on their campuses and bring the parents into the classrooms. Parents are not always comfortable in a school setting. And so when they get to come into the classroom, and it's not, sitting in a gym and having an administrator speaking to them, right? It's saying, come into the classroom, join your child in centers, come read a book with us on the carpet. That brings them into the learning and really helps them be more comfortable with the school environment also.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, when a student has graduated, or not so much graduated, but like they are at where they need to be, what does that look like? So what is the process? Do they start at 2 or 3 and they continue all the way through high school?
Through the Rice OWL labs?
Yes.
No, so we only serve children in early childhood. So we follow the National Association for the Education of Young Children's definition, which is birth through age 8. And so that's where our work is centered. For the most part, we really work with teachers of 3s, 4, 5, 6 is where the majority of our teachers, work and serve, but we do serve infant to 2nd grade teachers too.
And like I mentioned, this is through Rice University,
Yes,
but really, who's funding this in all of these 9 schools?
Yes, so we're super grateful for Rice's support. And at Rice, we talk about serving beyond the hedges, and so that's a commitment we take really seriously. And just this idea of supporting thriving urban communities, and thriving urban communities start with educating our youngest learners. So Rice is a huge component of our support. We also have several generous funders. So thanks to lots of family foundations, that's how we can keep doing this good work.
This sounds like kind of a vague question, but your answer will make me seem smart in asking it. What does it mean today in this culture and time to be bilingual?
It means to be proficient in both languages, I think. We really encourage and emphasize children being strong in their native language and in English, not one or the other.
Is it something you need, though, in today's emerging culture and world to be able to speak multiple languages?
We think so. Yeah, it's a gift to be able to communicate with people in their native language. Absolutely.
So nine schools.
Yes, sir.
3,500 students. Well, are we going to double that in the next few years? What's our growth pattern look like?
Yes, so we are committed to growing. So kind of the key phrase I keep using is strategic, sustainable growth. Our model is really detailed, and we want to make sure as we're growing, we are preserving the Rice excellence and brand all the way through all those labs. So we're growing slowly and strategically, but for next year, for instance, we're opening 2 new labs in 2 Houston area districts and then 2 labs outside of Houston, which is kind of exciting. So yes, we're growing little by little.
Can it grow online? Can you create, or have you even created programs and stuff that people can do it without being necessarily involved in the programs, but get benefits of a lot of the work you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a couple of programs that did, especially during the COVID-19 time when everybody was online, run exclusively online. Now almost all of our programs have a hybrid component because it's the way of the world. Yeah. And so we're adjusting to that, and especially thinking about how we expand our programming outside of Houston. We're kind of going to be in a position where we've got to really figure that out. So that's our goal for next year.
That's a good goal to have.
I'm wondering, what do you think the OWL Lab's impact is, not just on literacy, but in the broader educational culture of Houston?
That's a great question. I hope it's a good impact, and I hope it's a big impact. I hope that we are bringing attention to the importance of early childhood.
Are their brains just like sponges?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would think that, because you're basically 4 to 8 years old here.
Yes.
And so they would just absorb everything that you teach them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I hope our impact, like I said, is huge, and I hope that little by little we bring attention to the importance of, like I said earlier, listening and speaking as a key component of pre-reading and writing skills, because a lot of traditional classrooms have teachers talking at children and they're listening, but talking isn't developed just through listening. You have to talk.
Yeah, you have to engage in the sport.
It's certainly making them smarter, that's for sure.
And you talked about that hybrid, but I would imagine it's very important to make sure that you are having people in person. What are some of the activities that they do?
Yes, so that's a great question. We have people come to seminars at Rice once a month, and they also are assigned a mentor, and so that mentor visits them in their classrooms a couple times a month also. To try out new things and practice those new ideas. And then the OWL Lab teachers often serve as mentors as well with the teachers they serve.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Jordan Khadam-Hir is the director of Rice University's School Literacy and Culture Program. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you all having me.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening and watching to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from LaPorte CPAs and business.